Hey everyone, it is me again, and today we are diving deep into my history with silver, a journey that has been, shall we say, a roller coaster of emotions and more often than not. Expensive lessons when I first stumbled into the world of investing in my early 20s. I was a prime target for every get-rich-quick scheme involving precious metals. Silver, with its lower price point compared to gold, felt more accessible, more like something I could actually play with. I saw it as a ticket to fast cash, another speculative toy in my misguided quest for instant wealth. I was completely ignorant about its true value, its industrial demand, or its historical role as money. My approach was haphazard, driven by online forums, breathless predictions, and a constant fear of missing out. I thought I was participating in the market, but in reality, I was just gambling, throwing my hard-earned savings at something I barely understood. I remember distinctly going all in on silver at one point, convinced it was about to moon. As the internet gurus would say, I liquidated other small holdings, stretched my budget, and bought what I thought was a significant amount, of course almost immediately after my purchase. The price stagnated, then slowly began to decline. I watched in agony as my supposed fortune dwindled, paralyzed by indecision. Should I cut my losses? Should I double down? My emotions were a chaotic mess, a cycle of desperate hope and crushing disappointment. This was not investing. This was pure, unadulterated stress. This experience, among many others, was a harsh reminder that speculation, especially when fueled by ignorance and emotion, is a dangerous game. It was a painful but ultimately necessary awakening that forced me to reevaluate everything I thought I knew about money and wealth creation. My perspective on silver has undergone a radical transformation since those early days. I no longer view it as a mere speculative instrument, but as a critical component of a diversified, resilient financial strategy. It is about wealth preservation, about protecting purchasing power in an increasingly uncertain economic landscape. And right now, the silver market is at a fascinating crossroads, influenced by global industrial demand, geopolitical shifts, and potential government interventions. These factors are converging in ways that make understanding silver more crucial than ever, not just for financial enthusiasts, but for anyone looking to safeguard their future. Consider, for instance, the growing conversation around silver being designated a strategic metal. I have been following these discussions closely. If governments, particularly the United States, decide to classify silver as a critical resource vital for national security, the implications would be profound. My younger self would have instantly focused on the price explosion, imagining a quick flip, but the seasoned and somewhat scarred investor in me sees a much more complex picture. Such a designation would likely lead to policies aimed at securing domestic supply, potentially through tariffs on imports or even mandated domestic production targets. While this could certainly drive up prices, the more immediate concern for someone looking to acquire physical silver would be availability. Establishing new mines or reactivating dormant ones is a monumental undertaking, requiring vast capital investment, years of development, and navigating complex environmental and regulatory hurdles. This means that any push for domestic sourcing would inevitably create a supply crunch in the short to medium term. Moreover, if the government were to initiate a strategic silver stockpile reminiscent of historical reserves, it would instantly become an enormous player in the market. Imagine the U.S. government with its virtually unlimited financial resources entering the silver market as a buyer. This would create an almost insatiable demand that current supply chains, already stressed by increasing industrial use, would struggle to meet. For individual stackers like me, this scenario could mean a significant challenge in acquiring physical silver. It is not just about a higher price tag. It is about whether the metal is even physically obtainable at local dealers or through online channels. The increased competition from a government entity would fundamentally alter market dynamics, potentially leading to widespread shortages for the retail buyer. This brings me to a particularly interesting observation I have made, one that highlights the current anomalies in the silver market for a long time. Collectible silver coins such as Morgan and Peace dollars always commanded a premium over their melt value. Even constitutional silver, which is simply U.S. coinage minted before 1965, always sold for more than its intrinsic silver content. This premium reflected both its historical value and its convenient, recognizable form of physical silver. However, recently I have noticed and spoken with dealers who confirm that these premiums have significantly eroded or in some cases disappeared entirely. My friend Harry, who runs a local coin shop, mentioned they are selling Morgan and Peace dollars at melt value and even constitutional silver slightly below melt. This is a truly remarkable situation, and in my opinion, a compelling opportunity for those looking to acquire physical silver at an advantageous price. So, why is this happening? When silver prices are in a sustained downtrend or just languishing, dealers often find themselves overwhelmed with inventory. People sell off their holdings, and the influx of metal can exceed the demand from individual retail buyers. What happens to this excess supply? It gets sent to refiners, it is melted down. I was absolutely floored when I heard a story just the other day from another dealer I follow. He mentioned sending 7,000 face value of constitutional silver for melting in just 1 week. To put that into perspective, that is $7,000 bags of silver coins. This is not a massive multinational corporation. This This is one small independent dealer in one state. Imagine the sheer volume of historical finite silver coinage that is being melted down across the entire country. And once it is melted, those unique pieces of American history, those tangible connections to a time when our currency was real money, they are gone forever. The U.S. Mint stopped producing these coins in 1964. The supply is finite and diminishing. This constant melting, driven by low prices and excess inventory at the dealer level, means that the existing stock of these historical silver coins is shrinking daily. And scarcity, as we all know, is a powerful driver of value over the long term. It is genuinely a bit disheartening to witness. These coins are more than just their silver content. They are relics from a period when our nation's commerce was underpinned by real money, by tangible assets. We have drifted so far from that principle. While I do not foresee a day in the immediate future when these coins become impossible to find, I do believe that their availability will become increasingly constrained with each passing year, and as their scarcity grows, it is highly probable that the premiums that have currently shrunk or vanished will not only return but will likely surpass previous levels. Therefore, acquiring these historical pieces at or near melt value today could prove to be a remarkably astute long-term investment. Revisiting the potential government actions, the looming date of the 13th of July is particularly significant. This is the deadline for recommendations to be presented to the President regarding critical minerals, with discussions explicitly mentioning price floors and tariffs for imports like silver. My cautious, experienced self sees this as a potential game changer. If silver is indeed declared a strategic metal and tariffs are imposed, it would effectively make imported silver significantly more expensive. This would force American industries, which are massive consumers of silver in everything from solar panels and electric vehicles to advanced electronics and defense systems, to source the metal domestically, as Harry rightly pointed out. While the U.S. possesses substantial silver reserves, we largely abandoned dedicated silver mining in favor of importing cheaper foreign sources, often as a byproduct of other metal mining. A renewed push for domestic silver production would undoubtedly create jobs and bolster national self-sufficiency, but it would not be a quick fix. Establishing new mining operations or reactivating old ones is a time-consuming and capital-intensive endeavor. This inherent lag would create an artificial supply shortage, further exacerbated if the government simultaneously begins to build a strategic reserve. The double impact of reduced imports and increased government demand would place unprecedented upward pressure on silver prices and severely strain the availability of physical metal in the market. The idea of billions of dollars being earmarked for critical mineral stockpiles, even if only a fraction of that goes into silver, translates into millions of ounces being pulled off the open market, unavailable for retail purchase. This situation, while not widely publicized, is incredibly important. The potential policy changes slated for the 13th of July are flying under the radar for most of the general public. Consequently, the immediate market reaction might not be a dramatic, instantaneous price surge. It could take time for the broader market to fully grasp the ramifications of such a significant shift in government policy. However, the underlying forces at play, the combination of increased government demand, curtailed imports, and the existing industrial requirements, all point towards a long-term upward trajectory for silver prices. My journey from a naive speculator to a more informed investor has taught me to look beyond the sensational headlines and to understand the deep, fundamental forces that drive markets. This unfolding situation with silver is not merely about short-term price fluctuations. It is about national security, industrial necessity, economic independence, and the profound implications of government policy on a metal that is both a tangible store of value and an indispensable component of modern technology. We have historical precedents such as the 1970s oil crises, which underscored the dangers of over-reliance on foreign resources for critical commodities. The strategic shift towards energy independence in the U.S. demonstrated the long-term benefits of securing domestic supply. The same logic applies to silver today, perhaps even more so, given its ubiquitous role in our increasingly technological world. Therefore, while I hesitate to make any definitive predictions about an immediate price explosion, I firmly believe that the confluence of factors at play is creating an environment ripe for substantial long-term appreciation in silver. The continuous melting of existing physical stock, the potential for significant government demand, and the imposition of import restrictions collectively point towards a future where silver becomes increasingly scarce and consequently more valuable. For someone like me who has navigated the painful terrain of speculative blunders, this understanding is not about chasing the next quick profit. It is about recognizing the intrinsic value of silver, its proven role as a hedge against currency debasement, and its growing importance as a strategic asset in a world characterized by accelerating change and persistent uncertainty. I will be meticulously tracking the developments around the 13th of July, and I urge you to consider doing the same. It is yet another powerful reminder that a thorough understanding of macroeconomic trends and governmental policy is infinitely more valuable than chasing fleeting market fads. And should these potential policies materialize, you can be sure we will be discussing them in detail. Thank you for joining me on this reflection.